Valerie Otero. I am currently the Executive Director of the Learning Assistant Program, and I am a co-founder with astrophysicist Dick McCrae of the LA program. Whether you like it or not, the LA program grows throughout campus. These LAs need support, so we do have the pedagogy course for learning assistants, first-time learning assistants, and they learn, both theory and techniques that guide their work with students. However, they have always asked us, can somebody just observe us and provide us feedback on the way that we're working with students? And the staff for the LA program isn't big enough to observe 400 learning assistants every year, so we established the LA mentoring program.
Hansman. I'm a senior here at CU Boulder, and what I do instead of LAing students is I LA the LAs essentially. So as an LA mentor, I meet with my mentee weekly. What I do first is I observe either her office hours or her recitations for at least 30 minutes a week. I write my observations down on a notepad. Once I have my observations, I relay them back to my mentee. I try to tell her what she did right, what I think could be improved, in addition to my own criticism. I try to bring back the pedagogy course to my mentee's LA student interactions and her teaching. So, for example, the pedagogy course emphasizes pause time and wait time and follow-up questions, and this has been something that I have been working with my mentee on to improve. So it's currently week 11, and she has started to ask about 3 follow-up questions on average, and that's going from 0 from the 3rd week of class. So hopefully it's providing some additional support, some additional structure, and some accountability for the LA, particularly when an LA could be really busy and they're not focused on the pedagogy course as much as they probably could be. And so the LA Mentor program is a way to not just supplement the material but also hold the LA accountable for actually using the literature and what they're learning in the pedagogy course in their actual student interactions. So after the course of 11 weeks of observations and these weekly meetings with my mentee, what we are trying to do, at least towards the end of the semester, is meet with the faculty or instructor in charge of my mentee's class. And so what I've been assembling for the past month or so is a faculty protocol, and it has not just my observations but my mentee's interpretations of those observations, what she's changed in her teaching to better herself as an LA or instructor, and what the LA Mentor program does when working with faculty is not particularly pushing reform or changes in class structure, but just to let them know, hey, this is what I observe in your class, I think you're using LAs really well, or hey, this is what I observed in class and I think the course structure could be refined so that you're using LAs to the best of their ability and allowing optimal time for student interactions.
I'm Levi Ruby. I'm a physics major, but I'm also getting my secondary ed certificate here.
I'm Musawwir Bakri, and I'm a physics and computer science major.
My name is Izzy Lustig. I am a psychology and theater double major, and I am an LA for biological psychology. As someone who has been a mentee and a mentor, I think on both sides of the spectrum, it's so helpful and validating to have this other person go through things with you. I had taught a lot before I was a learning assistant, but mostly kids, and so my experience was really different, and I was really nervous working with people my own age. So having someone to kind of commiserate with or, bounce ideas off of was so helpful to me in my teaching, as well as me as a student and as a person in general. It was just a really amazing experience.
And the elementary program takes advantage of the experience and skills and expertise that LAs build throughout being in LA. So it takes experienced LAs, and then now they take a course on mentoring. So we use various mentoring guidelines and books and readings about how to open the conversation for thinking, the difference between consulting and coaching, and those kind of skills they learn in the mentoring class, and they are each assigned 1 to 3 mentees. And so they'll go out, they'll observe their mentee at least a half an hour a week, and then they have a half hour a week consulting session with their mentee. And this really is helping to support the new time LAs, but also to build phenomenal leadership skills and mentoring skills among those experienced LAs. It's also helping us to build a better program.
I've been a part of the LA Mentor program for 2 semesters now, and a lot of our time is spent discussing different articles about mentoring stances and how best to mentor our mentees. So we go in and we spend like about 2 hours, about maybe an hour total a week with our mentee. We spend half an hour observing usually and half an hour in a meeting with them, and we just kind of chat about what we saw, what maybe pedagogically they can improve on, or what content-wise they can improve on, or deal with any issues that come up. I mean, we've only been doing it for 2 semesters, so I'm sure there's a bunch of scenarios we still haven't seen.
Yeah, we also work a lot with our mentee, like working through problems they might have with the students, or with the other LAs, or with the professor, or with the course structure. It really is like working all together at every angle. And then we have the class, the mentoring class, which helps us do that, and like gives us all of the tools that we need in order to work with faculty and work with our students and stuff like that. One of the biggest successes with my mentee is that on Monday, I was observing her while they did this big like the section-wide activity, and it's like a 400-person lecture hall. And a couple of things that we've been working on is interacting with individual students and wait time, and being able to help students get to an answer that they'll remember and that they'll understand within the concept of their own life. So that's something we've been working on since we started working together, and I have noticed her using it more and more, and encouraging people to come up with specific examples of terms and specific examples of anything that the clicker questions or the activities are talking about. And we talked, and in her next course meeting with her instructor, she is going to ask if all of the LAs can kind of follow that framework, so that the students are more primed to be thinking about this before the LAs even come up to them, which I think is very exciting, especially when it comes to like eliciting student ideas and making things, especially things like psychology, which are so real world applicable, like making them applicable to students to hopefully increase engagement in like these gen courses that people have to take.
Yeah, in my case, actually, one of the things that my LA struggled with was kind of bringing back like students when they were working in class. Sometimes they would go off tangents, and they would go off tangents a lot. So it's tricky to bring them back kind of without kind of being like authoritarian and kind of force them. Yeah, we need to get back and kind of have it more of like kind of like an advice to them, or kind of like indirectly bring them back to the course material. And she was worried about the students like kind of going off tangent, and then I brought this concern to the class here, and we discussed it in the class. And so I went and asked her how much of the time they're spending on tangent, and then turned out it was like 10 minutes or something. And I also asked her how do you think about their grades, and then they were doing pretty well. And then even going off tangents, we tried to kind of see are they going was it productive for them? And turned out actually for that group especially, they were actually understanding the material. They go off tangents also for science related topics. So I thought I told her she doesn't have to worry a lot about this particular thing unless it's kind of affects their learning experience. And yeah, that wasn't the case in that example. So yeah, that's one of the things kind of we discuss in like our meetings.
A struggle that my mentee last semester had was, first let me back up and explain the structure of his specific scenario. It would be him and then around like 10 to 15 students from the course in a room, and he would walk them through a worksheet in some fashion or another. And he would spend a lot of time lecturing. Was a big struggle that he had, because it seemed that the students that were coming into lecture didn't have an understanding, or coming into his recitation didn't have an understanding of what they'd learned in lecture. So he felt like he had to re-go over everything every time, and he was really doing a lot of standing up on the board and pointing and stuff. And I brought that up to him, and he said, yeah, but I'm struggling, and I don't really know how to make sure they understand all the material. And the solution that the mentor class came up with, like after like talking about it, debating it for a while, was just we took the whiteboard and we just picked it up and took it off of its like standing post on the board, and we laid it out on the table, so that now everyone was contributing. He wasn't lecturing, he was having a group discussion with everyone sitting at that table, and everyone would contribute to what they were thinking and how they thought. And it made it easier for him to teach the material without lecturing at students.
I can say that I can pull up the data right now because that study has been done.
Oh, it has?
And the overall findings are that the students in the online course outperformed the face-to-face folks.
Whoops.
Yeah, especially in the concept of formative assessment.
But is that because they have like constant access to the internet, and like if they're doing it online, are they
outperforming?
Yeah.
And so they were already aware of like how we were measuring stuff, so whether or not that fed into the way they taught.
Also, I think in the online context, there's more like individual feedback to the students in that course. So as they're submitting their activities or their assignments, I know the online instructors are spending a lot of time giving very individual feedback. So if you're detecting, ooh, they're not really grasping this idea, they have that level of feedback. Whereas sometimes in the face-to-face section, I mean, you're interacting with groups, right, as you're discussing, but you might not be pushing as much individually.
We have a whole other prompt in the LA Reflections where we ask more specifically about kind of the formative assessment, and you'll see a much better understanding of formative assessment than is represented in the data that in that paper. And so what it's helping us understand is that tests, like the tests that we performed, don't measure the depth of students' understanding as well as maybe some other methods could.
In the mentoring class last semester, we brought up several situations. The ones that come up at the top of my head are my student who was having trouble with not lecturing. We had a student who was having trouble with wait time, and we were talking about different mechanisms of encouraging them to use wait time more often. And we had a student who was having issue with the language barrier between him and his students, because English was not his first language. So we would sit here and we would brainstorm and just talk. Everyone would throw out ideas. We'd make sure we write them all down. And at the end, we would kind of all sort of democratically vote on, this seems like the best idea and it seems the most appropriate to you. But ultimately, the decision was up to the specific mentor of what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's also like happened to me a lot in this class is like my LAA kind of have troubles where I didn't necessarily have like a appropriate strategy at that time. So I would usually tell her, well, I will bring that up to my LA to my LA mentoring class, and then we have some I mean, we're all experienced LAs in here, and then some of us actually doing mentoring for like second time. So I bring up that like every week for the class, and then we discuss it as he was saying, and then kind of like see what strategy may work, or maybe what kind of the things kind of like measurements we can make, like the ones with the students, and like see if that will affect them, or see that will work. Kind of like bring like at least some feedback to the LA, and then kind of discuss it with the LA further. So that really helps, yeah.
Yeah, it like having this class to support the mentoring, I think is really important, because not only do we have a place to come when we have these problems, we have our mentors, which are like Valerie and Lori, who are the coordinators of the LA program, who help us with everything, and then we have each other. who all have very different backgrounds, both academically and like life-wise.
Anyway, so here we're doing testing on pedagogical concepts, similar to what we do in physics, right? And so that's why we thought it was a groundbreaking study, because it was, who else does this? Who tries to measure pedagogical knowledge? Because all the teacher literature, they follow the teachers into the classroom, they measure experiential knowledge that you're talking about. And they always find a difference between beliefs and practices. Because there's a difference, that's why they find it. So good, really good point. And so like Lori says, we are following LAs around, and what we see is that they know so much more than this study measures. I mean, and like you could just go to a poster session, right, and talk to LAs, and you're like, wow, that's not a normal undergrad. So it's a good, really, really great point, and we need to follow up with this study with that point. Right?
I'm curious what you think of this idea for collecting the data, like, because we can all, like you were saying about with your mentee, like you're able to have those discussions with that person. And I drew back to this, the international commerce, but I keep drawing back to what you said about the psychology department and the Teach in LA program.
It's
Because
awesome.
I think that's awesome.
It is.
What if you ran that with pedagogy? You had experienced LAs who had like experience with pedagogy, and then you have a requirement throughout the semester that LAs that are new to the pedagogy class have to go to like a sort of office hours with an LA that's done this before, or has been at least trained in pedagogy. It could be an LA, or it could be like a graduate student. It could be anybody who would be experienced enough to code for it, and they could have to have like a conversation about like formative assessment and constructing knowledge. Like you just pick two of the ideas and you have that discussion with them, and that way you can code for what they learn.
Doesn't have the same problem though of discussing educational principles without actually applying them. I mean, if you're teaching LA
But I think the
educational
point
principle,
is to discuss it without necessarily.
This would be a different kind of data.
Okay.
It would be a different kind of data.
Mhm.
Because we do want both, right? We want a discipline is beautiful because there are these kind of generalizable, what I call suitcase ideas, that you can put them in a suitcase and go to anywhere and use them on anything. They're general, and that's what makes Newton's second law so great. You just kind of go anywhere and use it. So those suitcase ideas, though, they require some doing to formalize them at that level. And so we do want the formalized, we want the suitcase ideas about pedagogy, but more importantly, I think at least at our stage, working with LAs, is that applying the knowledge. So one of the things that we observed in the very first semester of the mentoring program is that the courses are getting benefit from having an LA mentor in them, because the LA mentors come back to they're working with the directors, and they come back telling us information about the context in which LAs are being used. And they'll say they could take better advantage of the LAs in that environment. So now they're not just mentoring the LA, they're seeing ways in which they can influence the context in which LAs are used.
We also work with the course instructors there, like in the classes that are using LAs, and help them give them feedback, like a constructive feedback about like how they're using LAs, and like how is the LA and student environment structured, and then what could be better done in the class.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's actually new this semester.
Yeah. Something I think we like, the way we describe it is we're like an advocate or an ambassador from the LA program with like advice for course instructors who maybe don't have the opportunity or the time to really delve deep into like education, like studies and stuff like that, so that we can like help them ensure that they're maximizing the usage of their LAs. Like a common thing that has happened is LAs are in a lab section and all they do is pass out materials. And we try to ensure that that is not happening to any LA.
Yeah, and that happened to me last semester. I was a batch of the first mentees last semester, and my mentor worked with me in my office hours, worked with me in my lecture, and worked with me during our course meeting, and helped troubleshoot ways for psychology LAs specifically to be used better, because it is so content heavy and there isn't like lab sections and things like that. The biggest thing that I've learned when talking to faculty is that everyone is learning, and like we might have feedback for them that they have never thought about before. Your feedback is really important, and they want your feedback, and they want to get better at using LAs because they're learning too.
So we've set up a faculty advocacy program where these LA mentors serve as faculty advocates, where they will work with the faculty member, help them learn a little more about how the LAs are interfacing with the context that they have, and also to help the faculty member think about alternative ways that they can actually get more bang for their buck in using LAs.
As new LA mentors, there's about 3 new LA mentors this semester who have never worked with faculty, have never talked with faculty, and so there's this growing concern that we as undergraduates, as LA mentors, as non-peers to our faculty members, there's this concern that we're going to be intimidated by the faculty, and so what we've done in class to prepare ourselves to talk to our faculty is we've brought in other faculty from around CU Boulder, some other institutions, and we've role-played and practiced. And we got feedback from those instructors in class, and I was really surprised to hear that a lot of faculty would really like to hear advice or observations from someone that's not their peer, so that they don't automatically feel defensive or judged. And so I think that although as an LA mentor I am a little bit scared to talk to a faculty member, I kind of realize now after talking with a faculty member that these interactions shouldn't be intimidating or scary, because it's just all being used to better the LA program, to better the course structure, to fit LAs in a more appropriate way. And so I really hope that at some point faculty, maybe not all faculty members, but most faculty members would be open to hearing feedback from students.
So now we have built the mentoring program so that an entire course can apply, that is a faculty member, can apply for a mentor for their whole setting, or we can also pair the mentors with individual students. So this is providing an enormous resource for maintaining and improving the quality of the program throughout campus.
It's really nice to have a place to all work together and have this learning assistant community.